What is up, everyone? Welcome to the How to Build an App live stream. For those of you that don't know, basically what we are doing is we have started a podcast called How to Build an App. And the whole reason we've done it is because there are so many people out there right now who have no idea what it takes to get started. And what we're here to do is really just answer those questions for you. So what we're going to start doing every single week as an extension to our How to Build an App podcast is we are going to do a live stream every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, really just to come in and answer questions that you have on what it takes to get started when you're building an app. So super excited for this, and be sure to join when you have questions. Basically, the goals of these questions are to really just answer like any questions that you have. So whether it's a technical question on whether or not you are building the right or using the right software to build your app, or whether it's a product question, or whether you're just going through a challenge like in your startup, this is just a place for you to come and get answers to any questions that you have and really talk through solutions. Now, what'll be super cool is moving forward and in the future, we are going to start to have guests on these episodes. This is our very first one. We wanted to see how it was going to go. And so after this, you will start to see guests, and it won't just be me and my face here. And we'll be able to answer any questions that come up. So super excited for this. If you are, again, a new founder just getting started, feel free to come in and get those questions answered. So basically, the goal of today is one, get a feel for what it's like to go live on LinkedIn and YouTube. And two, have a couple people jump in and ask questions that they have about what it takes to get an app to market, start driving revenue, and get started. So super excited for everybody that's joined us today. And let's jump right into it. So basically, the theme of today's episode is really just giving everybody an understanding of what it is they're getting into when they start to build their app. So yeah, let's jump into it. I think one thing that comes up and one thing that's really misunderstood is how to get started. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to building an app, it's not necessarily the cheapest thing in the entire world. So the question is what is the most effective way to get started? So I really want to talk about what it actually takes to get started in an MVP, validate that idea, and actually take it to market. What does that process actually look like? So when you really think about it, like as a business, what you're trying to figure out is if the product that you're building is the right product at the end of the day. And in order to truly do that, you need to do a lot of different market testing. And you want to do this testing without having to fork out and dish out $100,000 to this new app or this new product that you're building. So different tools are on the market today. And it's definitely changing the industry as a whole for software engineers. There's different tools, there's different things you can do to help validate your idea and make sure that you're getting, product market fit before you're forking out a bunch of money on it. So what's super awesome is instead of having to go somewhere, hire a bunch of engineers, you can use a bunch of different no-code tool options and test the concept before really investing into something custom. And the reason that this is such a good idea is because the barrier to entry is low. Typically, you're able to go in, use this software, and build the product you want, show it to customers, and actually see what kind of traction or what kind of response the market has to your solution. So there are awesome tools called Adalo, Bubble. They allow you to go in and make an app, and what you can do is as you're going through and building this app, you get to really kill two birds with one stone. One, the first thing you get to do is you actually get an understanding of what it takes to build an app. I think what happens is as a founder, you get this idea, you have it, and you don't know where to, you don't have a lot of technical understanding. And so by starting with a no-code solution, you're getting this idea of what the infrastructure is out like what kind of infrastructure is required to build an app. So you get to understand what our database is, what is UI, what are these things, and you start to help prepare yourself. So when you are ready to make those technical hires, you have this understanding of what it is you're actually, what it takes to actually build your product. So the other part of that is you're actually getting product validation, and you're going to get responses, and people are going to ask you for new features. And at some point, you probably will scale out and have to build something custom. But you're able to take this product that you've built on a dollar, let's say you want to build a marketplace, and you're able to show it to your customers, and they can then start to ask for features, start to ask new things. And honestly, it creates this, it shows you the actual experience required to build a product. So when you go and build this MVP, you're putting it on the market, you're getting feedback, you're taking that feedback, you're iterating on the product, and that cycle will continue forever. And so, it's super important as a founder to be as lean as you can, because ultimately this is going to be a high risk thing that you do. And so the more that you can do to make the risk lower, the better you're going to be long term. So we've got our first question here, which is super cool. Cool Guy 1984. They want to know, if I decided to build an app, what am I actually committing to? So this is a really interesting question. I think there are two pieces to this. There's the financial commitment, and then there's like this long-term commitment you're making. And the reason I bring up the financial commitment is because when it comes to starting any business, it's not necessarily the cheapest thing. It has the opportunity for long-term ROI and can be very lucrative. But if you don't take the right steps, you can instantly start backtracking, and it can turn into a risky investment. So I think the thing you need to understand is, when you're building an app, you're committing to serving your customers long-term. And basically what that means is when you go through the process of building designs, actually developing your product and putting it out in the market, your customers are relying on you to make sure that software is reliable. They're relying on you to make sure the software is secure. They're also relying on you to continue to bring value and to continue to update that app. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that are out there, or something that's just really easy to mix up, is building an app, building a product is not just like buying a house or building a house. There is no such thing as done. There's always going to be new features. There's going to be new iterations. There's going to be new things as a business that you're going to have to commit to and build out in order to serve your customer the best. And so I think one thing is, this is not a short-term commitment. You're going to be committing to your startup. You're going to be committing to your product in order to get any kind of success for at least 2 to 5 years. Plan on investing multiple years on iterating on your product, making sure you're understanding the market, making sure that you're really providing values to your customers. So one, I think, or two, the two things to consider: one, the financial risk, and the second one is the long-term commitment, because having an app is the very small step and shortest step to what it's actually required to building a business. I think to also kind of piggyback on this question, I want to talk about the kind of things that you're going to have to do as a founder when you get started in building like your app. So once you have this app out, you're going to have a lot of decisions to make around product, and you're going to have a lot of decisions to make around marketing, and you're going to have a lot of decisions to make around hiring. So do keep in mind that your product is a very subset of this, is a very micro piece of this macro business that you're building. So do keep that in mind. It does require a lot of time. It does require a lot of hours. And there will be a lot of times where you feel like you're the only one, or you might be losing. But ride out the wave. Make sure you're building something that you're passionate about. That is what makes it easy. Cool. Next question that we've got here. Good old Peyton. The question is, what is the very first step I should take when I've decided I want to build an app? So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to validate that what you're building is the right thing for the market. So there are multiple phases to market validation. First one is going to be validating that what you want is the actual, or is validating the product that you're building actually solves a problem for the market, and that the market is large enough for you to be serving it. So different ways you can do that. Let's kind of go into some like action items and things that you can take away. Very first thing you can do is you can build a simple landing page, and you can run PPC ads or just Google ads or Facebook ads. And you can actually see how many clicks, how many people are converting, how many people are putting in their email address and want to know more about the product. You can start to build like your brand messaging through it. So validation is more than just the product. You need to validate that you have a market. You need to validate that the solution you're building is actually wanted. And then you also need to validate that the size of the market is worth being in. So what you also validate too is your brand messaging. So I guess 4 key things when you're validating. So once you've gone in and validated, hey, once you've gone in and made sure that you've validated your product, what you can do is you can take that and, once you've basically posted Google Ads, gone through and done a couple of these things. Well, let me think on this for a bit. So once you've actually validated your market, then once you've validated that what the customers want and they're interested in your product, then you need to take that and hand it off to a designer. And then you have to validate again, because there are different scenarios where, because the market knows what they want and because you have a solution, there can still be a mismatch in general. And what I mean by that is, let's say you know that the market wants your product, you've gone through, you've designed the UX of this, you've gone in and you built high fidelity wireframes. Now you need to take those wireframes or this UI and show it to the market. And when you show it to the market, you're going to get even more feedback. And typically this feedback is around usability. So are you building something that's intuitive? And this is where designers come in and create the most amount of value, which is super fun. So once you've gotten feedback, your designers can take that feedback and create a cohesive design that users actually can engage with, interact with, and it's easy to use. The last thing that you want to do is to create a feature or to create something for your market and them have no idea how to use it. So the more you can do around the usability standpoint, typically the better product you will have. So this process doesn't end. You're going to be constantly validating, whether you're a first-time founder and you've just gotten an idea, or you're somebody who is 3 years into your journey. This iteration and validation cycle is going to continue. There are people who are Series A, Series B, even Series C, who are still trying to get that market validation. Just because you have users doesn't necessarily mean that you've validated your market, because you need to be able to get it to a point to where it's validated or it's being used at scale. So you're going to be constantly taking new features, you're going to be building new segments, and you're going to be making sure that what you're building is the right thing. You're going to be constantly making sure that it's usable. You're going to be constantly making sure that the market continues to want what you're offering. And in even some cases, as an industry or as a business, you're going to be looking for new solutions. After you've solved one subset of problems, you may decide as an org that it's time to pivot to solve a second problem. And I think that's something to really take into account, is when you're just getting started, really truly focus on one thing. Don't build 6, 7, 8, 9 features. Only build one feature at a time. And once you've solve that problem for a large majority of people, then you can start thinking about that second challenge. How can we find a different piece in the customer's journey these messages that come in, they're distracting. How can I solve a different pain point on the user's journey? So cool. Payton again, let's see. How do I know if I'm building the right app? This is a really interesting question. I think there are a couple things you have to consider. The first one is going to be, are you building the right app for you? Because if we kind of piggyback off the first point here, is if you're working on something and involved in something that you're not passionate about, you're going to want to give up really, really early. And the reason why is it's just hard. Building a business is not the easiest thing in the world. And so one, you need to make sure that you're building something that you're passionate about, and that it can be step one to you knowing if you're building the right app. The second thing to consider here is, are you building the right app for the market? And I think this kind of ties back to kind of like the previous question that you had, Peyton, is building the right app. I really think you've got to let the market decide. Like, I think a lot of founders, or like a big thing that you see is a bunch of people come in and they think that they're building the right thing, or they're building a solution for themselves, when in all reality, like, as you start to offer a solution to the market, it's really no longer about what you think. And so I think the thing that you can do and consistently check throughout the life cycle of your product is making sure that you're continuing to bring value to your market. So those can be done through surveys, those can be done through one-on-one interviews. And the overall goal is to make sure that the customer is happy with the usability, that they're happy with the features, and that they're buying into this brand and the solution that you're offering. So I think that's the easiest way to know if you're building the right app, is do the customers enjoy using it? And as long as the customers enjoying like the product, you're typically good to go. And I don't have water. That's fun. Cool. I think another thing that is interesting to talk about in this process of getting started is, we've talked about what you're getting into. We've talked about validating your app. I think another thing that you have to really consider early on is the culture that you're building as a company. And basically, the best way you can define culture is the emotion or the way that everybody in the business feels about the company. And honestly, that's how I would define culture. And the thing is if you are creating an environment that is, I don't know, not open, or I would say if you're not creating the opportunity for the people you work with to go above and beyond, or you're making them feel scared, or they're not bought in, you typically need to consider or change your culture. I think one thing that founders do is they tend to make themselves too involved in the business process, or too involved on the technical side, or too involved on the product side, when founders may have something else that they need to be working about. So I guess the real question is how can you create a good culture? I think the best way to create a good culture is to, one, really look within and understand your core values as a business. Are you, so for example, we at Strides Development, like our three large core values are communication, transparency, and reliability, so code quality. So because we truly believe in communication and transparency, we're always asking our team members to let us know how they feel about our process, or how they feel about the product they're working on, or come up with different solutions, and they get to communicate that up with their PMs or their product people. How are they enjoying the process, right? And so by really understanding your core values, you can start to create culture. Is going to be like an inherent thing that comes from that. So as an example, every single one of the engineers that we hire, they have typically done some form of freelancing, they have owned some business, they have worked on something, and they have extreme ownership of what they're working on. And what that does is that trickles down to the product that they're working on. So we've created this culture of ownership and communication and passion about these products, or products that our engineers are working on. And so really focus on that, because the hires that you make early on, these are going to be people that you work with all the time, and ultimately are going to define the success of your business, because without them, you aren't able to build, you're not able to grow, you're not able to scale. So I think another interesting thing about hiring is, where can you find the right hires? This is something that is not necessarily the easiest. There are a lot of different tools that you can use, like Upwork and Fiverr. Everybody always has that friend of a friend who's an engineer. I think when you've really created your core values, when you've really defined your culture, have to like consider the person you're bringing onto the team. And so whether you're hiring like a friend of a friend, whether you're hiring people through Upwork or TopTal or Fiverr, really make sure that they're bought into your idea. Because if they're just somebody who's, hands on a keyboard and just doing whatever you say, you're only going to get as far as you're able to take them. But if there's somebody who's motivated, who has like goals for the product and are coming up with ideas, that is the kind of person that you want to bring onto your team. So if you're looking to hire, I definitely recommend checking out Upwork, Fiverr, if you're just getting started, or if you're a funded startup, give Strides Development a call. We have a free strategy call where we basically give you advice on how to get started. So yeah, I think that's fun. What should I? So I think another thing that often comes up, or a thing that founders definitely don't pay attention to, is being too focused on the product and not super focused on the other aspects of the business. Because again, you have to remember that the company is or like your software, your product is a small subset of the entire business as a whole. So when you're just getting started, you should probably focus a little bit less on the product and more on the things that are required to keep the business going. So as an example, if you are somebody who is just hiring your development team, and you've got a budget, let's say you've got this budget, the thing that you have to be asking is, how can I make sure that we continue to have the revenue and the runway to keep our engineering team going, to keep our marketing team going? And what do I need to really drive the business to the next level? And oftentimes that puts you in a position to where you are constantly fundraising as a new org, or you are doing interviews, you're talking with customers, you're getting feedback, you're being involved like on the product side. And those are things that you can focus on as a new founder versus being all hands on with the engineering team. Typically, as a founder, you have one of three traits that you really focus on, and that's either sales, engineering, or marketing. So really make sure that you're over-indexing, you're spending most of your time on the things that you're good at. So guys, that was the How to Build an App Live, where people can just come in and ask whatever questions that they have every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, we will come up with ways to make this more exciting. We will bring on guests. We will have different questions, and over time, we'll grow together. So thanks for joining me on the How to Build an App podcast live. And I don't know how to end the stream, so this is fun. Interesting.